What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd J Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Marvel Roundup, Brian. I don't know how you feel about these Doomsday trailers. I've only seen the two, the Thor and the Cap. And now I think I saw a leaked version. I had to watch. And I think it is regarding the X-Men. So yeah. We'll talk about that. MCU future hanging on Doomsday and Spidey. Is that a question right now?
There was an article about one of the people that tracks from one of the official services that tracks box office, and the guy that gave that interview floated that idea that there's a threshold that those movies have to hit basically in order to justify the long-term viability of the MCU. So I thought that was an interesting comment.
You know what we should do as baseball fans, Brian? We should break it down as, does this have to be a grand slam? Do it has to be a bunt so that we can keep going, keep the inning going? Or this has to be significant? We got to talk about that. Because if that is the threshold, then where does it leave us with the Mutant Saga? We got to talk about that.
Well, I think it's also topical in light of this conversation is being had with regard to Avatar, right? Again, we're talking big numbers, but big numbers relative to very high expectations. And so that can have an impact on the decision-making of the studio going forward. So anyway, it was I had not seen someone put this out there quite to this degree. And the more I thought about the numbers that they mentioned, I thought one was reasonable. I thought the other was actually pretty surprising. But we'll see. Maybe it's, we'll see if it's true or not. But anyway.
Hiddleston has some of his thoughts about Doomsday. Coogler speaks on Black Panther. Coogler has some plans. And why those plans didn't happen. And Jordan Peele, his name has been floated previously some time ago. But I think Jordan Peele is, if I was the one pitching him, come join the MCU, I would be thinking about it as, it's interesting. We'll talk about it later when we get to this rumor, because it's significant, right? Doomsday teaser updates, Brian. You've seen all three, correct?
So I've seen two in the theater. I've seen the third one that's been leaked. And then we also had finally a confirmation potentially that there is a fifth. There's been some questions. We knew there were four. Then the question was, would there be a fifth? And there's maybe been a confirmation there is a fifth. So
5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The first thing that I thought was interesting was when I went back to see Avatar a second time with my family. They put the Thor teaser and the Cap teaser back to back in front of the movie. Which I had not heard was the plan, but it made me wonder, does that mean when you get to the end of the fifth teaser, you actually have to watch
1, 2, 3, 4,
5 straight minutes of Avengers teasers to get to the right before the movie? It seems like that might be the idea, but I wasn't expecting that. My kid was very excited. I hadn't told her anything, and she Chris Hemsworth has acted in a lot of other roles. The second she heard his voice, she didn't even just sees the forest. She knew exactly who it was, right? So she got excited. And then same thing, they show Cap's motorcycle. The second his motorcycle helmet, not his Cap helmet, the motorcycle helmet gets hung on the arm. She knew. She was like, oh, she's like, yes, he's back. So in that sense, you could say
no more.
You could say in that sense it's working, right? Because even for a 10-year-old who's watched all these movies, she immediately is geared up and ready to go because she sees these two characters or hears them, and is immediately interested in where things are going. Nobody walked out, at least for the second go around. We'll see if that changes. But there wasn't much. I would say the Thor one didn't get much reaction. The Cap one, the first time around, like I told you, got a real reaction. Thor 1, there wasn't much reaction in this particular theater.
I would be fascinated if you got up to the 5th showing of this, Brian.
5th.
And no one walks out. If no one walks out and they stick around to watch, then the Avatar is
long.
going to definitely get up to its numbers.
That's a long movie to sit around for that
That's
many
what I'm
times.
saying, yo.
Like I've been there
out.
twice. Like I've already been there twice, and I'm like, I think for the next one, I'm actually looking at the schedules to be like, okay, so if I go at this time, I can see the teasers, and then I can go watch Marty Supreme in another theater. Like I'm already starting to like think that way.
The commercial would be, or the skit would be, driving with your wife and parking like in a no parking area. It'd be like, yo, I'll be right back. Yo, because I can't just see myself. I would show up at the very minimum. Like the movie says start at 1, you probably got to like 105, 110 to see it. You know what I'm saying? So you
I
got to
think it's later than that. I mean, that's the thing. Like, because I mean, like, you know, these large formats, right? You're getting 25 minutes of trailers before you get to these, right? Because these are attached after the lead in to the cinema and the movie and all that sort of stuff. And with this Avatar thing, they have the big, at least what I've been on, like the Dolby screens, they do like a big Dolby commercial to show you how much better the picture and the sound is. So that takes like a couple minutes, right? So it's a solid like 40 minutes already. Like if you have a 1:00 show, Avatar first shot doesn't roll till like 1:40. So you start adding more minutes. You talk about 45 minutes now. You know, I think, yeah, if you have a 1:00 show and you just want to see the Avengers stuff on a large format screen, you could probably show up at like 1:35 and you'd still see it. So yeah, it's pretty wild. But I don't know that it seems to be working from an Avatar perspective. Like that box office is obviously by any other standard was doing fine, but it is certainly remaining well below the pace of Way of Water. So it's hard to tell how many people are actually going to the theater versus just waiting the additional week or two to see it online, or not caring at all, which we don't totally know. I think Doomsday was still, I saw on I sent it to you, like the buzz list for 2026, Doomsday was still the number one film, for next year, which makes sense. I mean, they still, but how big, like how emphatic that number one is, we don't know, right? That's the thing. Like that's the thing that determines 2 billion versus 1 billion.
I mean, they got to do something, Brian, to get the excitement bubbling. I mean, is this in your opinion? Do you think the execs and the people behind this, in terms of stirring up excitement, are thinking experimentally with this? Like, what would you have preferred? I mean, because this is different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think a little cynically here. Like, I think the entire motivation is they want to break records on the opening weekend because that's the only way they can get the money to where they need it to be. I mean, like I don't think they can get to the end game opening weekend, which was, I believe, 357 million US. That's still a record. I don't think they're going to get there, but I think in their mind, they want that opening. I think they want that opening US weekend to be at least 250 to 300 million. And they probably want the international to be at, close to that, if not a little more than that. Yeah. So they're looking at it saying, okay, if we can do 600 to 700 million in the opening weekend, even if this movie is not that great and doesn't have the same shelf life that the other ones had, we can still assure ourselves of at least 1.5, 1.6 billion. We can get toward that Avengers 1 type total. That, I think, is everything to this marketing. I really don't think it's about Endgame was about knowing they had you in the palm of their hand and they didn't have to show you anything and they could just kind of whet your appetite just enough because they knew they had your money. I think this is not like that. They don't know for sure they have your money. So they just want to muscle everything else off the front page so that you're assured of getting a ticket for that opening weekend before Christmas.
But from a creative aspect, I understand you have to do something to stir up that excitement, man, because the question was before, what was the story? Now you're building towards that. We have a lot of speculation as to what you're trying to connect because of what you've set for us to do in September of 2026, and that's to watch Endgame. What do you see on TV? Endgame.
Yeah.
I was in AC for the New Year's. I saw Endgame like 3 times, yo. They want you to feel a certain sort of way, like what could be next? What are the ramifications of that sentence if they use it correctly, Brian? I don't think they gotten us there. I think you could have done a lot with the words that Robert Downey Jr. or Iron Man said to Cap. Time tends to mess with you back.
But this marketing so far is 90% nostalgia and 10% question. So I think that's fair, right? I mean, it's like you're just seeing Steve Rogers in a familiar place.
Yeah.
You're seeing Thor looking familiar or back to his short haircut, right? The question is simply Steve's holding a baby. And so that's your first window into that part of time you never saw. That took some of that life Tony was telling me to have.
Yeah.
And then in Thor's case, you're kind of seeing serious Thor kind of implying like he's not sure he has it anymore.
Yeah.
Basically saying, can I be God of Thunder one more time?
Yeah.
That's the question, right? We know what that question is pointing at, right? It's pointing at Doom and it's pointing at this story. But when you get to the end of these 5 teasers, and the X-Men is kind of similar, right? You're sort of seeing, oh yeah, there's Patrick Stewart, there's Ian McKellen. Yeah, McKellen's got the long Magneto old man's hair now. Yeah, you see, Cyclops firing off at a Sentinel. And it looks good. I mean, the effect looks good. But I mean, I think if we get to the end of these 5 teasers and everything you've seen is 90% people and feels and places and things you've seen before, and only 10% is like question without any like real new zinger.
Yeah.
Do you think that was ultimately a good play? Or do you think Marvel is leaning on the crutch of what they've already done too much already?
They're asking us to watch Endgame in the theaters again. It's definitely a crutch. It's not about whatever they did. I think I saw a headline where they openly admit that what phase 4 or whatever this phase is a failure.
Well, 4. I think, yeah, it is. Yeah.
So they want you to forget. They want you to make the connection between the chaos that when these things happen, this is all Steve's fault.
Yeah.
Because of that decision that he made. And if it's a story, Brian, that is told where it creates the drama that it needs to create, but if it falls, like my hope, Brian, my optimism says that they're being very creative with this, and I get it. You can certainly point to the chaos that it created. And it all leads to this. Is the connections that they're trying to make with this that's going to be important. But how they pull it off, like Robert Downey Jr. has to be a different man, but it looks like he's being asked to be the same Tony Stark in instances, which I don't kind of want to see because I already know what the ruse is.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've made this comparison, but I think it grows by the day. Like this is the Terminator franchise, effectively. I mean, we want you to ignore Rise of the Machines, and we want you to ignore Salvation and ignore Genesis, and like we keep going back to the end of Terminator 2 and trying to build off of that. And I think this is effectively what they're doing here, which is like they're building off the end of Endgame. Which I think can certainly work commercially well enough at least one more time when your predecessor movie made nearly $3 billion. But you don't get to do that over and over and over and over and over again, in the sense of you can't keep bringing Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth and Robert Downey back over and over and over again every couple years and having that kind of, it loses its impact over time.
And the crazy thing, Brian, is that we've talked about this. in general about the inevitability of what was to come in terms of the change that would need to occur. Because again, like you're saying, Chris Evans can't be Cap forever. We got to change. And if
Yeah.
this is the core, we got to treat these characters like what, Brian? James Bond. Got to change them up.
Yeah.
Tell them in different stories.
100% agree. And I think the more times you do this and the more times Disney feels like they can't do anything but this, the other franchise you start moving toward is Star Wars, where we talk about the Skywalker family just looms over all and you can't get away from it. And it's like, this is the whole, right? Like, what did Rian Johnson, of all people, say about Star Wars? He's like, it needs to change. Like, you need to keep pushing it. And so I feel like these movies are strange animals, the Doomsday Secret Wars, because in some ways you could argue if you are trying to blow up the universe or reset the universe, then yeah, you probably do need the OGs. You need some of that backward-looking mentality to clean it all up.
Yeah.
But once you play that card, which they're going to play this time, I don't think you can really play that card again. So like in Avengers 7, if there is an Avengers 7, you can't just do that again. Audiences are going to start rolling their eyes at basically like every time there's an Avengers movie, like the original Avengers pop up over and over and over again. It's like you can't keep doing that.
They set the precedence, Brian. They laid out the playbook, even though some of it was by accident, but they did it in a way that kept that drama continuing to what was coming next. Because you said it in the first movie, Avengers. That was the connection. That was the expectation. And what happened between that was what got us there in success. If these Avengers start feeling like the way it felt for me when, and I'm just trying to pick on Shang-Chi. I'm not trying to pick on Simu Liu. I'm just saying the ease in which he was a member of the Avengers, yo. They don't even know this guy. They picked him up. They've probably been watching, whatever the case may be, but nothing, whatever. He's already, and the other girl too. Katie. Members of the Avengers, Katie.
Yeah.
That's how easy it is, yo.
Well, it's ironic because remember, they spent a lot of time over the course of the Iron Man movies basically debating whether Stark belonged in the Avengers, even though he was effectively the charter member, right? Iron Man 2 was basically at the end. They formally reject him on the grounds that he's too egocentric, he's too much of a loose cannon. So the point was there was an evaluation going on for who was fit to be in this group. And as you said, it kind of turns into a club where everyone's invited, as we go along. But I think if I'm thinking about like the post-Endgame era, look, I mean, we've talked about this along the way a lot. I think I will be interested to see as we go into the Mutant Saga in particular, what lessons did they really take from that? Because I think the wrong takeaway, which honestly, some of what's happening in Doomsday and Secret Wars might be implying that this is what they're hearing, is the idea that change itself and new is not something audiences want. I think that's the wrong takeaway. If you really think that's what the message of the underperformance is, I think you're seeing and feeling the wrong message. I don't think those movies struggled. I don't think the box office fell off just because they were new and different, just because they weren't Steve Rogers and weren't Tony Stark and weren't Chris Hemsworth on down the line of the originals. There is there's the message that I would be taking that it's not clear they've received. It's like, I would say there actually was some encouraging signs in Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four that maybe they were starting to get this message, but it's still TBD.
Yeah.
The reason these things underwhelmed is they weren't good. It's not that they weren't new. It's a lot of them were not that good. And you started to cut corners on storytelling, visual effects. Yes, you did start to put an emphasis on some other things that some people in the audience didn't have time for. And maybe that was a Disney thing as much as a Marvel thing, but that was also a factor. But the reality is this is the thing. I went back, when I go see Avatar a second time, is it very, very long? Yes. But you know what doesn't get old? is when you put them goggles on and he's in a set piece. Because you're just like, this looks spectacular. Every shot of this, I can see James Cameron cared that what I saw looked like as real as it could possibly be on this fantastical world. And it's like Marvel has clearly not held itself to nearly that standard for the last almost 10 years. And when you treat the audience like that, let's manipulate Tony Stark's line. When you mess with the audience tends to mess back.
It's like Buddy Revell.
Didn't even try. How does that feel?
You didn't even try.
And that's the thing with like, I look at something like Quantumania, which I rewatched the other day, and I'm like, that's where you just feel it. Like, that's a movie that could and should be really, really good. And it's like, they're just skipping over the missions, they're skipping over the story, and they're just like, oh, we're just going to take a shortcut to here. And here's this crappy looking CGI in the quantum realm. Like, here, please give us your money.
They got to take it back to the comic books and not necessarily start adapting storylines or whatever the case may be, in terms of the feeling you get when you're reading this comic book panel and how it made you feel, and you couldn't wait for the next one. That's what you're doing. That's what he said. That's what you essentially did with these cutscenes. You did it essentially on a movie screen, and I was like, "This is amazing." Until you, like what you said, Brian.
Yeah, which there were always flaws, but because there was so much propulsion, momentum, connectivity, we forgave a lot of that. But this is the part I always like. The stuff we hear about Kevin. If I could be in his ear about one thing, it's this: stop trying to take one thing that you captured as lightning in a bottle and using that as a reference point to try to outdo. That's not, in my mind, that's not what audiences want. So when you say, when I assemble the Marvels, that's got to feel like the assembly of the first Avengers. That's insulting, but B, that's a bad premise. Your goal in that movie should never have been to use the assembly of the Avengers as a reference point. And then when he says, hey, in Secret Wars, I want to take the portal scene and I want to up it. No, ignore the portal scene. That happened. You did that. Take the win, enjoy the legacy of that scene. But what was it's at the beginning of Inception, when Leonardo DiCaprio is talking to Ellen Page about how, and he's like, no, always imagine new places. Never places from your memory. New places. Kevin, new places. That's you want to win audiences over again, go somewhere new that's as well thought out, as unexpected and original as it was the first time.
And one of the commenters, and he said it very simply, like this could be a log line to pitch a movie, yo. X-Men, Savage Land, you got Jurassic Park, and
yeah, I know, sitting right there.
And freaking Avatar World is right there.
Immortality! Take it! It's yours!
If you make it look good, though.
Yeah, yo.
If you make that look like the other stuff we've been seeing, the Savage Land's not going to work.
Yeah, yo.
If it looks like Pandora, if it looks like the best of Jurassic Park, or even this rebirth that some of the scenes that Gareth Edwards did, like,
Badlands,
yeah, then you might have something. But you got to care. And so that's why I say, like, I think Marvel's feeling this thing of like, well, we tried new and the audience didn't want new. And I'm like, no, they do want new, but they want new done right. They want it done well. They want it done with passion and with care.
I want chicken, but I want it done right.
Yeah. Nobody wants sloppy. Sloppy, yeah, we'll take good old over sloppy new. That is true. But like, yeah, if you can give us good new, great new, we want that every time.
There's this Dominican spot on Broadway, and they do chicken like the way they do it. They do fried chicken the way they do it in DR. Yo, it is delicious, yo. But that's the difference. It's new and it tastes good, and it gives you that nostalgic feeling. Like, yo, I remember this, but this is delicious, yo. To have it,
exactly.
Yeah, yo.
That's the trick.
So does Doomsday and Spidey, there's the MCU that what was it that was said that makes us have to question how far into the Mutant Saga do we go? You know, if these things don't work out.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, as we're talking about that, just as a segue, like think about our critiques of Avatar 3. We just gave James Cameron visual flowers. But like we said, the repetitive nature of what you see in someone in Avatar 3, I think it is hurting that at the box office a bit because it doesn't have that same degree of newness and wonder that 1 and 2 had. And so you kind of see the audience being like, well, I kind of have been here before a little bit. So I'm not as enthused to go back over and over and over again. Still like it. Still going to do $1.5 billion, $1.6 billion, $1.7 billion, but like he's not going to do that 2.5 and 3 that sometimes Cameron has been able to reach, right? And there is a difference, right? That's almost $1 billion difference versus No Way Home, Against the Odds, takes the nostalgia of what you've seen, but gives you something new, uses those pieces to give you a very satisfying new conclusion. Yeah. I mean, and $2 billion, right? I mean, it's just like you see, like the audience can find that balance if you hit it right. Yeah, these numbers. Okay, so this is from Comscore talking about the state of the MCU and where things may stand. So the Wrap publication went to some industry experts, and the senior analyst at Comscore said, quote, 2026 may be the most important year for the MCU other than its inception. I think Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four both did great. I would dispute that. They did underwhelmingly, but again, we have to reset our expectations on what the MCU will deliver in today's movie marketplace. The bread and butter Marvel films are hopefully making a big comeback because the titles that are on the calendar for the future look, at least on paper, incredibly strong and could once again mark a return to the glory days of the global box office. They was then asked, what's the number for Doomsday and Spider-Man that they have to hit? And he said 1.5 billion each, which I thought for Doomsday was certainly reasonable. I thought for Spider-Man was very high. I mean, considering that No Way Home, yeah, got closer to 2, but that was a culmination, as we said, multi-generational film. The other Tom Holland movies were like 800 and 1.1 billion in the sort of peak years of superhero. The idea that these, let's take a total. Let's say these two movies combined have to go over $3 billion worldwide. That's the bar for the MCU to have had a successful, solid year. That is not a layup. That is doable, but that's not a layup. Like $2 billion, absolutely, they're going to get that. 2.5, I think they can get that too. North of 3 for sure. To just say, hey, we have the right to keep going and doing what we want. I think that might be close. We'll see.
Hopefully these claims are based upon what they've seen. And they're speaking of the potential because of what they've already seen, Brian, what they've witnessed. The dailies and all this other stuff. They could, like, if you're watching this, Brian, if you're there and you're seeing it and you're making those claims, I'd have to believe you. Because you're saying, yo, this is going to be dope. Mm-hmm. Say no more. Say no more. I'm just going to sit and watch.
Well, I don't think they're saying it based upon footage they've seen, though. They're just saying at minimum.
I'm saying the claims that they're making, I hope it comes from that.
Yeah. I think that's, like I said, I think this Avengers movie, I think you're circling the sort of Ultron 1-3, Avengers 1-1-6. I think in my mind has been like, okay, you should be able to get there just on the fumes of Endgame. You should be able to get there. But to my mind, in my mind, that's a passing grade, a bare minimum passing grade. I think, again, like with where we left these franchises, this like $2 billion is where you ought to be, right? It's like, that's what I mean. Like Avatar is being held to a $2 billion standard, right? This movie is going to finish with like somewhere between 1.5 and 1.8. And people are basically saying that's not good enough for Disney to keep going. So obviously they'll get to do Secret Wars, but I don't know. And Spider-Man, I don't think the bar should be that high. 1.5? That's too high.
Yeah, yo. I think
Billion for Spider-Man, yeah.
Yes.
1.5 is too high, I think, for that.
What is the budget for Spider-Man? Do you know?
As far as we know, it's pretty big. I mean, as far as we know, I think it's probably still in that like $250 to $300 million range.
Yeah, man. If you could get to 1, 2, I'm celebrating, yo. I'm celebrating.
Yeah.
But that has to come along with a good story. Don't think. I mean, what did Spider-Man 3, the worst of them, what did that make with Toby?
As I recall, Spider-Man 3's opening weekend broke records, and then because it wasn't that great, the fall off was pretty dramatic, and I feel like the total box was okay, but not great. I want to say it was like, I can look it up. I want to say it was like 800, 900. I don't think it got to $1 billion, even although granted it's 2007. I thought it was close to like 800 million.
885.
There you go. Yeah.
Close to 886, yeah.
Which again, at the time was seen as a disappointment relative to the bar that had been set coming off of Spider-Man 2.
Which was?
Well, I think it was more than just like Spider-Man 2 was rightly seen, I think, at the time as like one of the great achievements, right?
Yes.
In superhero and
Yes.
kind of that type of storytelling.
Oh, yes.
And so Spider-Man 2, I think, was closer to like 800, maybe 750 to 800. And so I think that the expectation was, oh, wow, they're doing a third one, finishing the trilogy. This should be $1 billion easy. And it should be critically like, who knows what Raimi can do. And it kind of winds up, the money winds up being fine, but then people are like, this movie kind of isn't it.
Spider-Man 2 made $785 worldwide.
So yeah, in 2004 money.
Yeah.
Yeah. When there was no, I mean, superheroes weren't really a thing, right? X2 comes out in 2004. Blade 2 is maybe the year before.
And this is according to IMDb, Box Office Mojo.
Yeah.
The budget was 200 mil, 785. And then the next one makes 885. But they were hoping for $1 billion, is what you're saying.
I think back then it was similar to like Man of Steel, right? They just like, we got this. Like, we should easily be able to take that next step commercially. And so they were like, wow, people don't like this movie. The fall off is really pronounced. And then that kind of ends it, right? That's what ends, we don't want to go forward with that. So, or in Man of Steel's case, they rushed Batman in, right? That's kind of I will say, I think one thing this year that's hopeful for Doomsday in particular, this will be the first time an Avengers movie has come out at Christmas. And this year's holiday box office has been really good. So even though like Avatar itself is lagging Way of Water, people are going to the movies for a number of different things, shall we say. But they are going to the movies. Yeah. And that is a good sign for Avengers next year.
Hiddleston on Doomsday.
I have this image of these people now with like, does Marvel have like hook them up to like electricity where like if they don't say these types of things, they get like bzzz, get shot by the studio? They all kind of sound similar after a while, don't they?
Yeah.
So here's Tom Hiddleston, quote, saying his contribution has been contributed, meaning to Doomsday, and then says, it is monumental. The center of the story is absolutely brilliant and was so surprising when I read it. It just has never been done before. To which you said,
okay. I don't know what I said. What did I say?
Reflecting back what I said about Ridley Scott on Gladiator 2.
Oh. Now we're going to see if he's lying. The hope is that they are doing something like that. That's the hope. Yeah. That is the hope, man. But it's like you guys are overhyping this, yo, like crazy. I don't know. You're not going to say, how does it sound somebody saying something bad about it? Or the true feelings behind it of this experience? They're not going to tell you bad stuff, you know what I'm saying, and cause controversy where this is not about that. So we got to say whatever positive sentiment that just helps the movie do what they expect for it to do happens. And that's just and we gotta just talk good stuff. So these like quotes don't really mean anything other than the hope that what they've seen is that monumental.
The thing I would say with these movies, though, based upon like if Rise of the MCU taught us anything, it's how much they are jigsaw puzzled as they're made. And so I think there is a world where, as an actor, especially in this kind of ensemble, where you could read your bit, like your part, and think it was a cool idea. Or you could think these scenes you have seem like cool scenes, but you don't see the whole picture yet, if that makes sense. And so you could have an actor reacting to just, hey, like maybe Tom Hiddleston is talking about his conversation with Chris Hemsworth. And you could say that scene is really well written. It seems really emotional. It seems really awesome, right? And you could still have the movie not be great. Yeah. But he wouldn't actually be lying to you if he said like, well, I was really excited about that scene. That was really cool. Like the way they structured that was unexpected, right? You see what I'm saying? So I feel like in these types of movies, there's always this like Voltroning of it that goes on at the end that is beyond the actor's pay grade. And they don't even know how good it's going to be. Like, so when they're being asked, they're like, yeah, it seems great. Idea seems cool. But then like they are disconnected from the final product. I don't know. That could be the case here. Because this is going to be so, I mean, how much material is going to be cut out of this movie, right? That was written a lot, right? Just by definition.
You know, Simu Liu's going to be in the front row, watching like a hawk to see, because he probably filmed a lot. He's in it. He's excited. And he's not one to hide his true feelings.
That could be a hold me back moment at the premiere.
Very interesting situation. Coogler. Anything else to add before we
No,
move
we're
on?
good. I know we're going to go along on the Doomsday thing. Let's talk about Coogler because he actually, I got to say, by the way, the Josh Horowitz Happy, Sad, Confused podcast is one of the best shows. He clearly has a really good rapport with a lot of the, not just the A-listers, but really the people that inhabit this genre. Mm-hmm. He does his homework. And they're really interesting conversations. And a lot of what we talk about now, I find with quotes comes from his show. So give his show a watch. It's always a good conversation. He had Ryan Coogler on this week. That was where we're going to quote here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he talked about not just Black Panther 2, but Black Panther 3 as well.
I'm interested in, because again, I saw the headlines. I didn't really, so again, this is a live reaction of what Ryan Coogler himself had to say, and me responding to or reacting towards those quotes and what it means and what it could mean for Black Panther 3. So what did he say?
So first of it, I thought the segment about Black Panther, the original Black Panther 2 was heartbreaking to listen to. I don't think he's ever said this, that he wrote a 180-page script that was complete prior to Chadwick Boseman's passing. And that when he went to give the script to Boseman basically was like, I am not in condition to read it because I'm not going to be around to do it. And I was like, I like just listening to him tell that story of kind of like he actually still, so it shows you like Coogler was still believing and holding out hope that this was going to work out to the point where he finished the story with T'Challa at the center. And then he goes and Chadwick has to tell him like basically like, hey, like I'm going to be gone by the time you make this.
And that story, man, I don't know if you guys ever watched Spartacus. The lead actor, Andy Whitfield, I believe his name was.
Oh, you're talking about the TV series?
Yes.
Not the Kirk Douglas movie.
Yes, okay, yeah. Hold on, no. This TV series. Andy Whitfield, I believe his name was. That guy was supposed to be the next one. They were holding out hopes that he can overcome his battle so that he can film, I think, season 2 of Spartacus.
I think you're right. Yep.
Season 2, yo, that season 1 is epic, man. That season 1 is epic. If you haven't watched it, yo, do yourselves a favor make sure the kids are asleep, and watch yourself the first season of Spartacus, yo. He was battling something, the lead actor, Spartacus himself, Andy Whitfield.
Yeah.
And they did a 6-part series, filmed the prequel to give him time. Because he was the guy, yo, that made that show what it was. Outside of the other actors, he was the lead. He was the guy. He was supposed to be the next one, yo. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
and I think they did a HBO or some sort of documentary movie or a series about that struggle and that attempt and yo, to make us a prequel to give him time, that's that's something.
Yeah.
And for Ryan to hear what he heard from Chadwick, him having the relationship that he established while filming the first one, yo, it's like that's the sort of stuff that changes you
As
and
you
gets you
said,
focused.
quote, coming off the first Black Panther, because remember, he didn't direct Boseman in Civil War, the Russo brothers did. And so he said, quote, now I know what he, meaning Boseman, can do. I'm going to push him to the limit, which is what the original script was. He said, I love that script. I put so much into that version of the movie. That's the one we'll never get to see. What is interesting is he finally talked about what was in it. And so the son was always a consideration. This I thought was an interesting, I guess I had always wondered with the son, with Toussaint, was that something he added in the final iteration of Black Panther to Wakanda Forever to basically account for what had happened? And the answer is kind of no. He says the big thing about the original script was this thing called Ritual of 8, where a prince is 8 years old and must spend 8 days in the bush with his father. And the rule is for those 8 days, the prince can ask the father any question and the father must answer. But in the course of those 8 days, Namor launches an attack. He had to deal with someone who's insanely dangerous, but because of this ritual, his son had to be joined at his hip the whole time. So he was engaging, he's talking about T'Challa, was engaging in negotiation, fights, and his son had to be right there or he would violate the ritual, which had never been broken, end quote. So that was the father-son thrust was actually at the center of the original version. And Toussaint is not a retconning because of what happened in real life. Like, that character actually had a bigger part in the original version.
Ryan Coogler built in the legacy of Black Panther. He built that in, yo, so that we can see more movies of Black Panther. He was setting him off to hand that baton.
Yes. Which leads to the Black Panther 3 discussion. Also, he dropped a little knowledge which I thought was cool. So apparently in the original Black Panther film, he did not want to reuse Ulysses Klaue. So if you think about Andy Serkis's role, he wanted that role to be Kraven the Hunter, and Sony said no. Somehow I feel like if they had given Ryan Coogler the keys to Kraven the Hunter, we might have been in a slightly better place than we are now with Kraven the Hunter. Just a thought.
Me personally, I would say we will be in a more slightly interesting place because
I agree.
I would have loved. Did he say who he had thought of as a cast?
No, he said he asked though. He said he requested it, and they basically contractually said
that
no.
would be my top 5. One of my top 5 questions. Who did you have in mind for Kraven?
And he had someone, because clearly, like, what Klaue got to do in that story, I don't think is exactly what Kraven would have been asked to do by his very nature. Klaue's an arms dealer, right?
Yeah.
Kraven's, but
He's a hunter.
But the idea too of that, like, bridge to Spider-Man just kind of sitting there all of a sudden, it would have been fascinating to connect some worlds. And I just, would have loved it. Would have loved it as like an eye-opening Easter egg for fans, but in his hands. Anyway, so that was Black Panther 2. Black Panther 3, I give Horowitz a lot of credit. He basically came right at Coogler and said, basically, why are you doing this? And sort of like pushed him on the idea that, look, Black Panther 2, the emotion, the aftermath of Chadwick Boseman's passing, that's such a personal, important type of thing to complete. Why come back again? And Coogler kind of pushes back pretty hard and basically says, I'm not doing this because I have anything to prove. He's like, I'm not doing this, for money, obviously. He's like, I'm doing it because I have a passion for telling this story, like finishing this story. And so he's like, it's on me to show the audience why I have that passion in the first place. And he's like, I think I have it. And then he goes on, they ask him about Denzel, and he just goes on to say, he's like, well, I can guarantee you on the day that I say action, I will be the happiest among the 10 billion people, give or take, on this planet that I get to do that. He's like, so I better write him a good part, implying he's not finished yet. But he's fired up. This is his next movie. He's doing the X-Files series, which he talked a little bit about. We'll talk about that in another show. And then he's coming back to do this. But he's, at least on the pod, he seemed pretty fired up and pretty re-engaged and pretty enthused to finish this. And he talked a lot about also how he pivoted Wakanda Forever to be really focused on, as he said, kind of the women in power by necessity. So Queen Raymonda and Shuri. And then he said, so I get the sense that this is like a bring it back around, right? So I think the son has to grow up in this. I think that you're definitely going to see like a full circle, if you will.
Yeah.
And it will be an ending to him. I mean, he definitely is implying like this is not, he's not to the point where you're saying he was setting up the future before. I don't know that he's setting up a long-term future in this go around. I think for him, this is his like Dark Knight Rises. Like this is his like I'm going out with a resolution of the story I wanted to tell, and they can do with it what they want after that.
Yes, but the legacy of the Black Panther, so that you can tell more stories. That if they ever needed his services, he's around. That's the guy that's around. You know what I'm saying? Because it isn't a 3 and out and that's it. It's over with. We never do this again. We need to get this. We need to get more of this, because I think people need to see what's possible.
Yeah, I know why he doesn't want to do an Avengers movie, because of so much of what's involved.
Oh yeah,
in terms
yeah,
of
hell no.
all the stuff you got to jump through and the lack of creative freedom. But man, like when you look at what he achieved in Sinners, coming off of what he's already done I don't know. Like there's just a part of you that's just like he's in the Marvels. He's on the lot. And it's like the guy who is clearly best qualified and has the talent visually to make the most interesting Avengers movie. They probably can't get him to do it, but man, I wish he would do it just to see. But I don't think that'll ever happen, because that's not the type of story that he's interested in. I mean, unless he found a way in to basically map some of the historical and social storytelling that he likes to weave in like very effortlessly. Unless he was allowed to do that and was able to do that, I don't think he would consider it.
I think he would certainly, for what they call emeritus or whatever that's worth nowadays, that guidance, like executive producers, somebody who they talk to when it comes to this, like, so he doesn't, I think you give him that respect to sort of weigh in on future projects, but him himself, I mean, he wants to do this, he wants to do other things. He wants to do other things, and that's the sort of dude that you let do other things.
Yeah.
Like he wants to do this Mansa Musa stuff. He's doing this X-Files series.
I'm actually a little surprised. Like, I don't know if he would have done it, but like X-Men feels in his neighborhood though. That's a social commentary. I guess it's maybe the characters themselves. He doesn't want to deal with I don't know, like the ensemble nature of it. He doesn't seem to love that. He seems to like doing like a more focused, Creed, the individual.
But the X-Men would be his type of Avengers type of situation.
That's what I'm saying. Plus, if you want Storm done right, I mean, that's the guy. Like, but I'm just saying, I think that would be the easy way in for the type of storytelling he likes to put in these big pictures. And I don't know, but it doesn't seem like they ever really had that conversation, and it doesn't really seem like that was something that they really wanted. So I don't know.
Yeah. Anything else he said that was interesting?
He told a funny story about Wakanda Forever, because he was asked about the flooding, the scene from the comics where they flood Wakanda. And he said, I got my full James Cameron on for this movie. And he said, I wanted to do that scene from the comics. He said, because I'm terrified of water. He's like, I actually learned how to swim for this movie. And he's like, I had a moment where I'm filming this large scale set piece. And he's like, you look at the type of people that are all around me swimming in the water. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing, of all time. It's like, so, but he's like, I deliberately wanted that in there because I was afraid of it.
I'll say this, and then we'll move on to Jordan Peele and the rumors behind him possibly taking on a project for Marvel, and that being the X-Men. I am inspired by Ryan Coogler, just simply because of who he is. He doesn't try to hide his emotional connection to the projects that he creates.
Oh.
And yeah, he's one of those people that I put up on that pedestal of inspirations.
Well, he's a genius.
Yeah,
I mean, he qualifies, right? This is a guy in his 30s, and you look at what he's achieved. And like, I sent you a link recently in the category of what we're watching. For Your Consideration is a YouTube channel where they show a lot of filmmaker conversations. And I sent you the one of Nolan and Coogler talking about Sinners. And it's really interesting to hear the two of them, but then hear Coogler talk about like his choices and like the whys of what he does. And like, to me, he's the best example of someone who really can, in an era where people become very polarized about messaging, he's the example of like, when you have the skill in your writing and the skill in your technical hand, you can actually do that. And it doesn't feel out of place. Every one of his films has that in it. Like if Black Panther has that at its core. Sinners absolutely has it at its core. But what he weaves around it visually and action-wise and storytelling-wise, you're so entertained and you're so taken someplace that like it somehow feels like it's enhancing. It never feels like he's preaching to you.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, is like, I realize you can't just give that to every other filmmaker or storyteller because that is a skill and an art unto itself. But it is a reminder to me that like that's not something to always be feared.
Yeah.
It just has to be in the right hands. And so, yeah, I love hearing him talk about filmmaking because you could just hear it. He's such a junkie for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Jordan Peele, whose name has been thrown in the air as a possible director or participant for a Marvel project. And we believe X-Men has been the one people have associated him with. What have you heard?
The question is what they want him for, right? Because this has been an ongoing dance, it feels like, where Blade has been the project that comes up, and this is not the first time it's come up, but it's not clear that's actually where the conversation has headed. It's just there's this ongoing talks that like Marvel really wants Jordan Peele to do a project. He doesn't seem like he's hanging up the phone.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of get the sense now it's not Blade, that it's actually moving away from that. I don't know if it's something in the Mutant Saga or something completely separate. Because Jordan Peele Jordan Peele as a director, he's pretty autonomous, right? He's another one of these guys similar to Coogler where it's like he tends to have control. So if you're going to have him do this, you can't really be meddling and telling him which people to hire and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I'm kind of feeling like it's not Blade. It's kind of feeling like it's something, I mean, I don't know, Midnight Suns? I mean, that maybe? Like, is that a possibility? Because they don't want to do Blade solo anymore, but they want to stay in Peele's wheelhouse of sort of thriller horror. Like, maybe they would go that way?
Listen, if they were thinking towards giving the respect Blade is due by introducing Midnight Suns and leading towards the introduction of Blade, I'm fine with that.
It would seem weird not to use his horror thriller sensibility a little bit, right? I mean, like, why would you call him if you weren't going to bring him in for something dark or something gothic? And so that would seem to be the project they clearly want to do that does not have a director attached or a writer.
Yeah.
So it's a big get. I mean, if they get it, it's a big get. The question is like, as we've seen in Marvel, that can go one of two ways, right? It's like Chloe Zhao was a huge get when they got her. And like, again, it just felt like that movie got chopped up and something happened to it and we never got like the full on Eternals. But
let me ask you real quick, because I wanted to ask you this, but we got into it and I forgot the question, but Eternals, I still like Eternals, yo.
I
think
like
it
it.
was
I don't love it though.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I like it. I like where they were heading towards, and like you said, a long, long time ago, there's a great movie in there.
Yeah, I think there's two things I would change. So one is the editing. I would love to see Chloe Zhao, like what didn't make it into the movie, because I do think there's some stuff in there that's really cool. I do think, like I said, I do think you have this Richard Madden, Gemma Chan issue where like the chemistry is just not that great. And like, as much as I like individually Richard Madden, I don't know that he wound up being the great Icarus. So that's the other issue of like, could I get a redo on that maybe? But no, there's other. I mean, the Barry Keoghan character, Angelina Jolie's character. Like, there's some really interesting subplots, and I think some of the visuals and audio of this are actually on the cooler side of what Marvel has done recently. It's just, yeah, you can just feel the machine. You can feel the machine like just putting this through processing over and over again, and you're kind of getting this movie that's like half baked, and it's probably not what Chloe Zhao intended, despite her saying all the right things about Marvel afterwards.
The Zhao cut. That's a dope. Put in some dope design. The Zhao cut. That's what Disney should be doing with their movies, yo. Giving these previous directors control over their stuff to see if people tune in to see what that vision was. That's interesting.
By the way, speaking of the cuts, speaking of a guy who will never do this, but I was seeing something about the Odyssey the other day. So that movie is going to be 3 hours long. So which is the maximum of what IMAX can be right now. But apparently, he used 2 million feet of IMAX 70 millimeter film to shoot this movie, which equates to roughly 200 hours of footage.
That's crazy.
You imagine the Nolan cut of 200 hours of Odyssey?
How like to see the thoughts and decision making of Chris Nolan if he gave us various cuts. If I cut it to 1:30, what would it look like?
Yeah.
But this is a 3-hour movie. This is an epic. So yeah.
Well, we're on a real tangent, but like I think you're right for streaming services and stuff like that. Because it was I think it's Soderbergh. I think Soderbergh did this would be my other thing. Have one filmmaker recut another filmmaker's movie and see what happens. That's my other, because Soderbergh cut, I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. He made it black and white. He changed the music. He was trying to drive home a point about a Spielberg movie that you didn't need the color and you didn't need the sound. The movie is still amazing. Yeah. But he, on his own, went and basically made his own cut of a Spielberg movie. And when I heard about this, and I was like, that's a gimmick. Like literally hand the full footage of a movie from one filmmaker to another and see their version of it. Just be like, have them recut it. Like, what does it look like? I don't know. I think that'd be fun.
Hells yeah, yo. You get to see people too. I think people will be curious enough to see what that looks like of a movie, seeing a movie differently than how you've seen it and remember it to be. Does it take away from the original emotion of it? No.
Because you do these services, you do it side by side. You do these for your consideration. Get the two directors on stage because only one director shot it. So you're basically having the other guy's just being an editor. Yeah. But have them debate like why they kept this scene in, or why they took it out, why they I think that's, I don't know. If you love movies, I think that'd be catnip to just see these guys doing that. Yeah.
But to wrap things up, my last thought on Jordan Peele, whether it's Midnight Suns, whether it's X-Men, you definitely need the right person for this. Someone who is thoughtful about the situations that the X-Men have to constantly overcome and how they tell that story. Language, yo, I'm telling you, yo, do yourselves a favor. I know pretty much any of you who've been watching this show, I'm sure you believe the X-Men 97 X-Men show is fantastic. It's fantastic, yo. And we should do it like a rewatch because we haven't seen it in a while. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen it in a while, right? I don't
X-Men
know.
97? No,
Yeah.
we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it closer to when season 2. We get a long release date for season 2. We'll do a revisit of season 1 right beforehand.
Yes. But
Then
Jordan Peele,
we'll wait for
the
Bo's
Bono
commentary on
segments.
his version. Speaking of cuts, on his version of every episode of season 2.
Oh snap! Bo knows. I can't wait for Bo knows shows. But yeah, Jordan Peele is a good choice. I would definitely, if he was, but it comes with that control, that C word.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Which Coogler had. I mean, that's the key thing is that like the crew on the Black Panther movies is not the typical Marvel crew. That's his people. It's really the only time Marvel allowed it. So if you're Jordan Peele, you're going to look at that and be like, I'm not signing unless I get his deal.
So yeah, let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of this episode of the Marvel Roundup. You know, how Doomsday is sort of shaping up to be and the way they're sort of helping us get to the excitement level that we got to Endgame with this movie. I don't know. It seems like it's working for the age group that they want to sort of engage with. I'm not there. I am interested in seeing what this will be because of how they're doing this right now. So it's fine. Do these trailers get me? No, they don't. No, they don't. Until I see this movie on screen, I am remaining neutral, although I sound negative.
It's all right. You're using up all of your positivity and hype in Masters of the Universe. You're good. You got it covered. You need balance.
Yeah, man. But yeah, and does the future of the MCU hang on Doomsday and Spidey? Because if it does, how much if it doesn't, if these movies are failures or considered failures because of their expectations, and how far into the Mutant Saga do we actually go?
To just put a bow on that, I think where it can have an impact is how rushed that might feel. I think if these two movies blow the doors off and really exceed expectations and the good vibes are back, I think it probably buys them time, the freedom to build that Mutant Saga a little bit more the way they want. I think if these movies don't do as well, then you're right. Then you might be trying to get more into that initial X-Men movie and make it a bigger event. That's where I could see this having an impact.
Yeah.
Because they'll get to make mutant movie. They'll get to make some degree of these movies. It's just the shape they take, the budget they have, that may change.
I'm saying there's some smart people over at Marvel because from what I seen in terms of headlines on Instagram of good reputable accounts, comic again is a good one, and I often send screenshots to Brian. They're working on several projects for X-Men, so that's interesting. That's interesting. Hiddleston on Doomsday, you know what? What can you expect? You can't expect him to say bad on anything not exciting. So it's like Coogler on Black Panther 2 and what that movie would have been like, and Black Panther 3. You know, I think we're in good hands in terms of someone who's being thoughtful about what story he wants to tell. I'm all for that. I'm curious and excited to see what he has to deliver in this, Brian, because I'm sure he's learned a lot. I'm sure he's evolved. And he wants this when there's something a story that he wants to tell. I think he's gonna tell a good story because that's what he's been doing. That's his MO. Especially with sinners, yo. And Jordan Peele. I think it's a good possibility that he joins as long as that. As long as the right situation is there for him to have the final say in terms of what it is that he wants to do, or he'd like to do. Because I think he also has to sort of entertain and be open-minded of suggestions. And it'll be a discussion. But we have to be grown-ups and understand that if an idea isn't well received and doesn't seem like is likely, Jordan Peele will have to have be the guy to say that and go with what he thinks is going to work. So does Marvel let that be the case? We shall see. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit that like and subscribe. And remember, you heard it anywhere else. You heard it here first on the Nerd Gen Report.